Welcome back to my mini-series about some of the best countryside adventures that the southeast of England has to offer. In the last couple of videos, I've been focused on National Trust gardens with a ruined building at its heart. There was Nyman's in Sussex, whose house was mostly destroyed by a fire, and Scotney Castle in Kent, whose owners purposefully left the castle to crumble so it could become the garden's focal point. Today I'm back in Kent, but this time I'm headed to Sevenoaks, a town just 25 minutes on the train from central London. On its outskirts is a magnificent deer park, and from there I'll walk 4 or so miles down to the National Trust's Ightham Mote, a moated house built in the 14th century. Before we get into it, it wasn't until after my day out did I learn that Ightham Mote is not pronounced as Ightham, so my apologies nice and early on for the mispronunciation during this video. Good morning and welcome to the National Trust site of Knole here in Kent. We got the first slot of the morning to park between 10 and 10:30, and we had to drive a little way through the park to get to the car park where the house is. And all the way through it we weren't able to see any deer despite the sign saying do not feed the deer. The guy on the gate said please make sure that you don't feed the deer. And then as soon as we turned the bend to get into the car park, we've just come across all of these deer directly behind me, with a beautiful view of the house in the background. So it's been a fantastic start to the day. Given that we've only been here about 2 or 3 minutes, it's reminding me a little bit of when we went to Richmond Park and we saw all of the deer immediately after pulling up in the car park as well. So fingers crossed the rest of the day is going to be just as good as this. We're going to explore a little bit of the deer park, then we're going to do a bit of a countryside walk through the Kent countryside, potentially via Toys Hill, to get to another National Trust property called Ightham Mote.
We wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Oh, you and I, we got it. We don't need no more. Even in the hard time, you and I can weather any storm. Before I sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon. Side by side and through. No limit to what we can do.
In the 1400s, the Archbishop of Canterbury owned Knole. In order for him to have a deer park, he actually had to go to the king at the time and ask for permission. It said to society that if you'd been granted permission to have a deer park, that you were of considerable wealth and also of considerable importance. I suppose deer hunting back then is perhaps a little bit like how I view polo today, something for the very wealthy and elite people in society to take part in as their pastime.
We don't need no more. Even in the hard times, you and I can weather any storm.
After seeing the herd of female deer as we first pulled up, I'm now keeping an eagle-eyed out to try and find some stags, because we're here right at the very beginning of April and apparently the male deer don't start to drop their antlers until the end of this month, and obviously getting to see the stags with the impressive antlers is pretty cool. The bigger they are, the better the genetics apparently.
Say something that will make my day, 'cause 'cause these memories of her won't go away.
The deer at this point are now starting to shed their winter coats, and so some of them are starting to look a little bit messy. But what I've noticed is that some of the birds are landing on top of the deer and then pecking away at the clumps of fur, and it's so that they can then put it into their nests, so that when the birds' babies hatch, they've then got quite a nice soft bedding inside of the nests.
Why did she go? Oh, was I supposed to know that she'd leave? Was I too naive to think that she'd be the one? Whoa. Why did she go? I met her back in 2005. It was her crooked little smile that caught my eye. Time went by and it was
So just as we are walking over to Ightham Mote, I have just smelled garlic, and I've looked down to either side on the footpath and there's lots of wild garlic. It's just before it's flowering, because normally you get those beautiful white flowers coming off of the top, and it reminds me a little bit of when we were in Scotland on the Isle of Skye last summer, and we could smell the wild garlic when we went to the waterfalls. And it's weird, it's really early April at the moment, and yet up on the Isle of Skye, I suppose because Scotland's climate is just that little bit different to the southeast of England, we were able to pick the wild garlic in July to have an spaghetti bolognese, and yet this is growing and it's fresh right now in April.
just tell me, why did she go?
And it's starting to get so warm, I'm shedding off the coat now. See if we can get to t-shirt weather by mid-afternoon today. I would be very happy.
Whoa. Why did she go? Whoa. Was I supposed to know that she'd leave? Was I too naive to think that she'd be the one? Whoa. Just tell me, why did she go?
So we've made it to Ightham Mote, and this was actually built in 1340. 1340, it just seems so long ago. It seems very difficult to comprehend, and the National Trust have done a wonderful job of restoring it semi-recently, I suppose within the last sort of decade or so. And obviously it's not open at the moment because our government restrictions are preventing us from being able to go indoors, but it's got beautiful pleasure grounds that we can use to have a wander around, see the exterior of the medieval house, although it's not even medieval, is it? It's probably even longer ago than that, and the beautiful moat that's going around it. So we'll have a bit of a wander in just to see what these gardens have got to offer.
There's a lot of colors, I don't know where to go. See a lot of colors, only feeling blue.
I'm not entirely sure how we've managed this, but we've turned up a little bit early and they were more than happy to let us in before our booked time. We've come in at the prime time of lunchtime, and given that cafes and things are takeaway only, we were fully expecting that all of the benches would have been taken, and we've managed to get this amazing bench with an amazing view looking over Ightham Mote. So just gonna sit down, have our butternut squash soup and some fruit, and then we'll keep on wandering around the grounds a bit more.
While you're on the open sea, cannot take this anymore. There are a lot of voices drowning in the sea. There's too many voices talking back at me. There are a lot of choices waiting to be made. Too many choices, making me afraid. Dreams are not the same for me. Standing by the shore while you're on the open sea.
This tree is a sweet chestnut tree. The National Trust are predicting that it's about 300 to 400 years old, and the nuts that grow on it get eaten by the pigeons and the squirrels that live in the area.
Standing by the shore while you're on the open sea. Cannot take this anymore. Certain.
The tree stump in the background has got what's known as coronet cuts made into it, and it's to try and replicate the fracture wounds that high winds would cause in trees. It allows the tree to stay taller for longer, giving a much better habitat for the local bugs.
How I'm supposed to get through the dreams are not.
Unlike a lot of other National Trust gardens that I've been to visit, it's not had a specific design given to it, and instead, from the 7 centuries that Ightham Mote has been present for, it's obviously had lots and lots of different owners, and each time each owner has given their own little bit of design flair added to the garden, and it's morphed into what we can see today.
Dreams are not the same for me. Standing by the shore while you're on the open sea. Cannot take this anymore. Cannot take this anymore. Cannot take this anymore.
So I think that's pretty much us done now at Ightham Mote. So we're going to walk back up to Knole where we parked the car. And when I say back up to Knole, oh my goodness, it really is going to be an uphill walk. I knew that Ightham Mote was in a valley, but I guess I didn't quite realise just how far down a hill it was. And pretty much the entire way to get down here, it's been really easy down slopes. So we are fed, we have sustenance, and hopefully it's enough to get us all the way back up. We'll see how we go. So even though it's woods behind me, in front it's just open fields on quite a hill going down. So I think the sun's hit this part quite a lot, which means that these bluebells have come out a lot earlier than what they normally would, which is giving me high hopes, because next week maybe might go in search of some more bluebells in the woods that are known just to be filled with a carpet of blue. So my slight wish a little bit earlier on of maybe it will get hot enough for me to be down to a t-shirt might potentially be slightly coming true, but that might as well be in part because this is somewhat all the way back up to Knole, and I think just with the blood pumping, the sun being out, and the fact that it is heating up as the afternoon is going on is all probably playing into it. This walk is absolutely beautiful. It's predominantly just been along a ridge like this, so even though it is a gradual going up, there's been really beautiful views. Unfortunately today it is quite hazy, but I think maybe on a slightly clearer day it might be even more impressive. So we've just come back through the Kissing Gate into Knole Park again, and after having been down to Ightham Mote and coming back through the English countryside, it just seems completely different. This feels very, very wintry. It's almost like there's no other plants except for the grass and then the big mature trees, and so there's none of that new spring growth of the bright green plants. It just feels like as soon as you've come through that gate, it's just turned into something completely different. But I'm now on a little bit of a hunt to see if we can find some more deer and potentially some more stags. So according to the National Trust, almost all of the females will be pregnant now, and the Seeker deer will start to give birth at the end of May, so next month, and then the fallow deer give birth throughout July and August. I spoke a little bit this morning when I saw the stag that only had the one antler about how the larger antlers mean the better genetics, but obviously the smaller the antlers, the more inbreeding has happened. This is not something that the National Trust has taught me about, but I would assume that when they do the deer cull, or the deer managing as they like to call it, I would assume that they will probably go for the male deer that have got the smaller antlers and allow for the ones with the better genetics to be the ones that live and can impregnate the does. Snuck up behind me, and it was obviously very curious, came right up to the bag, was smelling it. I've just tried to back away because that's what we were told to do if a deer approaches us. Okay, and it's obviously not taking the hint. Right, let's pick up the bag again and move once again. Does not seem to be taking a hint, but the fact that it is coming and approaching human beings is making me, crikey, it's making me very nervous about the fact that obviously people are feeding these guys when they should not be fed. That is not our carrot, I would like to just point out, not our carrot. Why would people leave a carrot? The deer that approached me as I moved away, I realised that despite not having its antlers, it is actually a male stag. That one has had the antlers cast, is what I've learned is the technical terminology for it. And when the antlers are cast, the deer will end up with a couple of sores, and they only last for a couple of days before the velvet starts to come through quite quickly. It's been a really, really lovely day out today. The walk back wasn't quite as arduous as I think I was thinking. I was like, it's going to be so far uphill, but it was actually quite gentle and quite forgiving, and yeah, just getting to see that really, really old moated house, and then this deer park has just been wonderful. It was really easy to see deer, really easy to see stags. It was a little bit odd. People were, what were they doing? So there's a golf course in here, so people are playing golf and there's deer in the way, and I don't know if it's maybe just because it's the Easter bank holiday weekend that it's especially busy, but I don't think I'd want to be a golfing member here because people were just walking on the green completely in their way, and then you've got deer in their way as well, and it was a little bit frustrating. We did witness some people feeding the deer, I think maybe just to try and get some good pictures, even though there are plenty of signs around saying please do not feed the deer. But I'd say just with those two slight oddities, the rest of the day has been lovely, and obviously the weather has been gorgeous, but apparently tonight it's going to get down to -2, so we'll see about our next adventures and where we end up, weather dependent. In the next episode, I'll be undertaking a solo hike around Box Hill in the Surrey countryside. If you've not done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel so you can join me in my South East England adventures.